Welcome back to What's Next Longevity Deal Talk. Today, a nearly $9 million investment round for K4Connect and another deal for Discover Live, this time with Linkage. First, this. Our sponsor in this episode is Magnolia. Here is CEO and co-founder Liz Tarullo.
Magnolia is a company that provides family caregivers all the tools they need to support their loved ones as they age in community. As more families navigate the transition of aging in place, we know the process can be complex, overwhelming, and very expensive. Magnolia members have access to aging experts to provide personalized guidance, exclusive discounts on relevant services, and a simple platform to manage finances. If you're in the business of caring for older adults, we'd love to hear from you. Write to us at hello@joinmagnolia.com.
I'm Fred Fishkin along with Mary Furlong. Hi, Mary.
Hi, Fred. Exciting show today. We have another dynamic podcast in store with some of the leading voices in age tech and old friends, I would say, too.
Well, we do. First up, we want to welcome K4Connect Chief Mission Officer, love that title, and founder Scott Moody. Hi, Scott.
Hey, thanks, Fred and Mary, for having me today.
And Scott, I have to say, I know how long you've been in the field working at building the company through some pretty tough times during COVID. And so we really appreciate the time with us today on Longevity Deal Talk, and congratulations on that new investment round. Let's give our audience a fuller picture of the mission of K4Connect.
Yeah, so Mary, as you know, we're very much a mission-centered technology company that really goes about the whole idea of integrating the best in technology, right, into a single comprehensive enterprise managed system, right? And so just like two things in terms of how we do that. Right. One is kind of our core technology, 41 patents, which we call Fusion OS. Right. So if you think about an operating system and how that works in a computer or a cell phone or a device, right, the operating system integrates all the components of that computer. Right. So it could be the memory, the processor, the display, and hundreds of others, as well as all the apps, as well as all the peripherals into a single system. Fusion OS does the same thing, but on an enterprise mode. So we think of it as an enterprise operating system, integrating all the technologies that you use in that community from front office to back office into a single system. And then the second part of that, right, of course, is the whole idea of, right, what we call an enterprise engagement or presentation suite. So think of like the Mac OS and the Office suite, right? So they obviously are two different things. And if you think about, right, it's all about, providing that data, information, and everything that's brought together to the various stakeholders. That's the residents, it's the family, it's the staff, it's the operators, right? And we do that through a bunch of different modules. So think of an app or the web or voice or signage. So it's really, right, so if you really think of this, we don't operate much different than this idea, right? Is, this is my phone, right? But the fact of the matter is Apple doesn't actually provide the phone function. That's Verizon or AT&T or Orange or so on and so forth. So we're really bringing all these disparate technologies into a single system. And that's what we do.
And you have the A+ list of investors. So let's talk about your investment, this investment round, and the challenging environment for entrepreneurs to raise money right now, and what this investment means to you. And in full disclosure, I am an advisor to the Ziegler Linkage Fund.
Right.
And so I do believe in what they're doing, and I'm thrilled that they're a part of this.
No, we appreciate it too. They're unbelievably, great partners. But that said, look, I'll be honest, Mary and Fred, it was really a difficult environment. COVID had an outsized impact on the business, obviously. right? I'm a big believer in technology as a key part of anyone's strategy, not just kind of a cost center. And people weren't thinking very strategically over the last 3 years. It was about getting people fed, keeping them safe, keeping them healthy, then getting staff, et cetera. And that's really all changed now. The thing that I would say though is that, one of the things I always see and hear is, right, all these companies that are raising money, right, and they come out and say it was great and everybody loves us and so on and so forth, right? The fact of the matter is it's difficult on everyone. I can't tell you how many people I've talked to here recently. It was like, congratulations, you're the only person I know that has raised money. But if you read all the press and the newsletters, right, a lot of people are out there, poor entrepreneurs, thinking like everybody's raising money except me, right? And that's not true, right? You're only reading the few people that raised money. It is a very difficult environment. I think that we had kind of very unique technologies, right? Clearly a market that is growing. And then I will say that we had wonderful investors. I know a lot of companies, even in this space, investors that kind of let their companies go, right? And they got sold off. In our case, people like Intel Capital and AXA, the third largest insurance company in the world, and Topmark, and of course you mentioned Ziegler, were all continually supportive during the downturn and all invested in this round.
And in my experience, that's the most important thing you look for in choosing an investor to work with, is who's going to be with you when the times get tough, not just when the times are great. And if they knew you stayed in the game and you were providing value to their stakeholders, the senior housing community.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
Well, Mary, to a large extent, right, our investors somewhat self-selected, because every time I've made an investor pitch, right, I've started with, I was called on it on a personal level. I was called on a trip to Rwanda, right? And I knew why when I met somebody with MS. Now, to be honest, nobody has ever said anything to me negative, right? But I'm sure there's a lot of investors, right, that leave that meeting and go, what the heck was that guy talking about, right? Like, dude, you're way off, right? But the ones that did come forward, like the ones I mentioned, and our new investor, Bryce Catalyst, right? They embraced that mission, right? And so what that meant was, right, these were all, seasoned investors. They knew what it was like to go through the ups and downs. Authentic went through the same, my prior company. But so they were, knowledgeable investors, and at the same time really supported the foundational mission, right, to serve those older adults and people living with disabilities. So, and it came through, right? Not everybody participated in the last round, right? Most did. But I can remember one that, sent me a note, congratulations on the round, right, et cetera, et cetera. And it was like, we love you, brother, right? And so you don't get many notes like that from investors. We have very good investors.
Tell us about the technologies, Scott, and the importance of them, the increasing importance, I suppose, with all of the difficulties in staffing today, what you're providing your senior living operators, and maybe what you see on the horizon.
So, Fred, I'm on your podcast, and I guess the thing is to really promote what we're doing, but I'm going to switch it up a little bit, right? I talked about Fusion OS and K4 Community, right? And those are the foundations of what we do, bringing all these disparate data and technologies together as one. But I think it's really how we look at things in senior living. People often say technologies disrupt markets. I don't believe that's true, right? I believe business models disrupt markets, and technologies enable new business models. Look at Uber, right? They didn't invent the car. They didn't invent GPS satellites, right? They didn't invent people. They didn't invent the iPhone. They didn't invent the app. What they did is they took all those technologies and brought them together in a different way and completely disrupted the market. If you think about senior living, right, I think the base model is incredibly solid, right, in terms of providing, right, care and hospitality to the people they serve. What is going to be disrupted is how they deliver that hospitality, right, and care. And that's where technology comes in. You can think of 100 technologies today, Fred. Forget about what's coming. There's some unbelievable things coming that could really go to better serve that resident, right, make the staff more efficient, so on and so forth. But the big issue, of course, and that's where we come in, is they're all disparate, right? And people don't have the staff, the knowledge, the money to kind of try to bring all those. If you have 100 technologies, for example, that have to talk to one another across your multiple communities, to integrate them all together is 4,950 integrations. That ain't happening, not well. And so really what Fusion OS does is takes those 4,950 and makes it 100 integrations. Because any integration integrated into Fusion OS, right, that data and the control, right, with permissions, of course, is available to any other technology so integrated. So that, that's what we do. But I think the bigger thing is really looking at technology as a key element of their strategy going forward, and not just kind of a cost center, right? If you think about banks, they've been transformed with technology. Their original apps were just because some little puke had a little app and they had to do one too. Now, I don't know the last time anybody right here has been to a bank, but it's been an exceedingly long time for me, right? So, that's where I think the key aspect is. And there's certain things you have to think of it as a strategy. You have to be consistent across your multiple communities, right? You usually have to hire or at least bring in somebody on a consulting basis that's really, knowledgeable, CIO, technology, VP of IT. Those are the things that I think, right, because I think the next 3 years, right, we're going to see technology change faster than the last 10, really driven by AI. And I think, people have to get on that bandwagon. And that's not a kind of side hustle, right? That's a pretty big thing in your strategy.
Yeah, I think that's absolutely right. I heard a quote this weekend that the Industrial Revolution took 20 years. The AI revolution is going to take 2. And when I'm talking to our clients, they're already deploying AI in content creation, in customer service, and we're all just learning from each other in a very rapid cycle. It's right. It's almost like the early days of the internet.
It's even in fact, Mary and I aren't real. I was going to say, in fact, Mary and I aren't real. We're just chatbots doing this interview.
I want to say, Scott, I really appreciate you underlining that point about the business model. We had Mark Mahaney at our conference, the Venture Summit in June, and he gave the top 5 stocks that people should look at. And now he says Uber's #1. And so people were listening, taking notes on his analysis. But look at what Uber has done in terms of, food to the home and transportation and these other services. And we're just at the beginning of looking at, I think, the integration of these technologies, not only in senior housing, but in home care and extension in the community, because the technology is going to make it more possible for the outreach in the community.
Right. And the other point I would make, there's those that, try to, let's say they even buy up things and try to come at the community with like, oh, we have everything. But really, nobody can develop everything, right? And the best in everything. Apple, right? There's a billion apps that they haven't done, right? And as I joke with people, when, Jeff Bezos started Amazon, he didn't try to write all the books he was going to sell, right? So really, technology is moving so fast, right? What you may be using today is going to be obsolete in 2 or 3 years. And so that's the benefit of kind of that whole idea of a plug and play operating system.
I think it's very exciting to think about the renaissance of applications that can truly enhance the lives of older adults. especially as the boomers are 77 to 87, when they're going to need a lot of these technologies. So we have to stop here, but we can go on and continue this conversation. So congratulations once again, Scott, on your funding, your continuing innovation, and your service to the older adults in the field.
Look, thank you, Mary and Fred, for having me today.
Well, thank you, Scott. And we have another deal to talk about involving Discover Live and Linkage. With us from Discover Live is founder and CEO, Jay Wei. Hi, Jay.
Hey, Fred and everybody. How are you doing? Thanks for having me here.
Great to see you again. And from Linkage, we are happy to see Vice President of Sales and Marketing, Mike Fisher. Hi, Mike.
Hi, Fred. Hi, Jay. Hi, Mary. Great to see you all and be with you today. Thanks for having me.
Wonderful. So congratulations on your new partnership. Let's learn a bit more about the backgrounds of the companies and then the significance of the deal. Jay, it's wonderful to have you back. Tell our audience for this episode what Discover Live does.
Thank you, Mary. Sure. Discover Live is the pioneer and the leading expert of real-time or on-demand virtual world travel. Since 2017, we have virtually transported tens of thousands of older adults to over 200 amazing destinations around the world. We partner with many senior housing communities and Fortune 500 companies to create best-in-class experiences, whether for life enrichment, mental health improvement, corporate entertainment, or cultural and diversity education to support their diversity, equity, and inclusion initiatives. We're renowned for our extensive global destination coverage, flexible programming, high-quality content, and exceptional customer service.
And stay tuned. We're going to be having one of your guides join us in a little bit, so everybody should stay tuned for that. But right now, you're up next, Mike. Give us the overview of Linkage.
Well, wonderful. Thank you, Fred. Linkage is really three interconnected companies serving the post-acute or non-acute space. We have Linkage Connect, which is our market research arm. We work on behalf of large manufacturers and also on behalf of individual assisted living, senior care facilities to get the pulse of what people really think about their service. Also, we have Linkage Ventures, which is very much involved in the Linkage Ziegler Fund. And that's the world we live in to try to help young entrepreneurs and companies that really move the ball in quality of life and such for those that our members care for. Then there's Linkage Solutions. Linkage Solutions is really the world that I live in. And Linkage Solutions is a curated concierge service for all of our members' resident engagement and supply chain needs. We operate as a GPO, kind of like a co-op, and we work very hard to bring products, not only the large items like the food, the pharmacy, and things that you would think of a company like ours, but also companies like Jay's that are really help improve the quality of life of those in our members' care.
You know, when people ask me for insight about the market, I often mention the Ziegler Connect because the GPO, you really have your hand on the pulse of the market. And I had the privilege of having dinner one night with Steve Whitman. And yes. I asked him what he bought. He said, well, we buy chicken, we buy incontinence, but you also do technology deals. So yes. Let's talk about the significance of this partnership and what it brings to both of you. Jay?
Sure. This collaboration unites two innovators in delivering enriching experiences to improve older adults' well-being. That's why I believe. By joining forces, Discover Live can now bring our highly immersive virtual tours to hundreds more of Linkage partner communities. And the residents in those communities will be able to enjoy our engaging programming designed to stimulate minds, encourage lifelong learning, and also foster connections. But most importantly, I believe this partnership will help combat social isolation and the loneliness among older adults on an expanded scale. I think that's the most significant part.
And Jay, what about for Linkage?
Well, for Linkage, every one of us has a connection, a family member, somebody that we're passionate about. We are sincerely not just passionate about the numbers, but about the quality of life of those in our members' care. And when we have a contracting team, and we spend a lot of time vetting our suppliers because we don't want to put anything in front of our members that's not going to be quality and it's not going to help the quality of life of those they care for, right? And when we saw the presentation and we walked through with Jay and his team, we saw a whole new world of opportunities for those living in the facilities and the communities that we serve. Not only personally, I have a daughter with special needs who's very isolated. She's now an art teacher and things, but for a while there, it was really rough. I've lived through this with my parents, with my grandparents, with aunts and uncles. I've been in this business for almost 30 years. And what I see is the social isolation is we talk about it a lot, but there's not a whole lot of offerings that are really bringing it about to really help. And this not only, as Jay mentioned, is helps with continued learning, with the isolation, but I see aspects of it where grandchildren can come in and children can come in together, and not only are they learning, doing something together with their grandparents. I think it's just a wonderful thing to improve the quality of life for those in our members' care.
Thanks, Mike. You know, we try to get inside the inside stories here when we can. So, yeah. Jay, why don't you start out telling us, what can you tell us about how this deal came about? We'd like to know who makes the call, who knocks on the door. Take us inside.
Yeah, sure. Over the past year, we worked very closely with Dr. Sarah Kyle. She's an expert in senior technology and resident programming to enhance our virtual travel platform to better meet the senior housing community needs. Dr. Kyle's insights really helped us to refine our product and program to align with the operator's goals for resident engagement and continued business growth. After seeing our customer reactions firsthand and the tremendous potential in our immersive approach, Dr. Kyle was eager to connect us with Linkage, because Dr. Kyle already knew Linkage, and especially recognizing our shared commitments to improve the older adults' well-being. So I believe her confidence in our ability to deliver innovative enrichment solutions and combat social isolation through immersive work travel experiences was instrumental in forging this strategic alliance. So we're grateful for Dr. Kyle for guiding us to optimize our solution and for catalyzing this partnership that now extend our impact.
One thing I think that is interesting is you have so many caregivers in senior housing from diverse backgrounds, and you can catapult. Those caregivers often have a very intimate relationship very personal relationship with the older adults that they serve. They're bringing meals, they're bringing medications, and to know a little bit about their cultural background would be so great, I would think, for the residents as well.
Absolutely, Mary. I think that you just touched on a very important point, because on our corporate side of the business, we do a lot of cultural and academic background training, not through books, not through videos, but we actually take them to their neighborhoods and really understand the different people's backgrounds. And it's the same in the senior living world, no matter from the caregiver standpoint, or even from the resident standpoint. They all come from a very diverse backgrounds. And I believe one of the reports that I've seen, I think by the year of 2050, more than 50% of the senior population at that time will be non-white, for example. So because of that, as an industry, there has a need to really get people ready for when that time comes, and how to provide the best and optimized, person-centered care to those diverse population as well.
Well, Mike, tell us what your thoughts are when the call comes or the knock on the door comes from a company like Discover Live. What happens then in terms of you deciding, okay, this is right for us?
Absolutely. Well, in this case, as Jay mentioned, Dr. Sarah Kyle, we've had a long relationship with her that precedes my tenure with Linkage. When she brought it to Steve Whitman and to Deb Hounshell's attention, they brought it to our attention. And how it works is this: we come in and we have a contracting team that's made up of operations and also our sales team, and we bring people in. And when we heard this, usually it takes a long time, to be honest with you. Usually it's a vetting process that takes time, and it wasn't just because Sarah gave us the connection, because we really wanted to make sure this is something that would benefit our members and those they care for. And this was unanimous. We hung up the phone. It was almost a foregone conclusion on the call, and we came together and we had pros and cons. We saw very little cons. I think they have a fantastic offering. What they do is going to move the ball in an incredible way. And we made the decision at that point to move forward with the relationship. And we are very excited to see what we can do together.
Well, I'm excited too, because I actually work closely, and I met Discover Live through Sarah Kyle as well. And let's look at your focus on travel. You were kind enough to bring our students to China. My MBA students got to go to China on the first day through Discover Live, and that was really amazing. But today we're going to talk about virtual travel. And one of my favorite places, a place where I was in January, is in Maui and Lahaina, which I learned was one of the favorite places to visit among people in Discover Live. And of course, our hearts go out to the people in Maui, to the older adults and people, and with what they've dealt with in the worst fire in our country's history. So, Jay, tell us about Lahaina.
Lahaina, as we all know, the recent tragedy really left many families displaced and businesses destroyed. It's so different than the last time we virtually traveled there. At that time, it was almost like a traveler's paradise. Beautiful, the people are very, very nice. And, it's just like one of those places that you could dream about of living there or visiting there. And that is totally different than some of the photos that we've seen, during the past few days.
And Jay, you were kind enough to bring on one of your guides to join us, who is in Maui. I'll let you handle the introduction here.
Sure. Thank you, Fred. We're fortunate to have Kelsey Winans, one of our tour guides in Hawaii, join us today. Kelsey lives just south in Kihei and has virtually taken many senior housing residents to Lahaina during the past years, and is also impacted by this terrible disaster. So Kelsey, would you mind telling us what's the situation now in Lahaina?
Well, things in Lahaina specifically are pretty grim. It's very weird what's happened. It's very tragic and devastating. It's still pretty hard to believe. I think a lot of us are still in kind of some shock because we never really expected anything like this to happen. Maui's had really huge fires before. I think 4 years ago that there was a record-breaking fire that was actually seen from the telescopes in outer space. And that was one of the biggest fires that Hawaii had ever seen. And so this just massively surpasses that. And just the sheer amount of lives that were lost is like, I think it's been told that it's the deadliest wildfire in the century in the entire country. So for that to happen to the people who I hold near and dear is really sad. I might get emotional because I haven't really talked a whole lot about it to people because, haven't been interviewed or anything. And my family was fortunate enough to not be lost in the fire, but, they're finding whole families huddled together inside of their homes that are totally burnt down. So it's really really, really bad. I hate to say it. I wish that I had some positivity around it. I guess the only thing positive is how much the community is coming together to help heal each other and donate and take care of the people who've lost everything. So,
of course, that's what we want to do, is to shine a light on the foundations and ways in which people can contribute, and let you know we're glad you and your family are okay. And any of our listeners and to the podcast will have data about how they can contribute and help.
That's wonderful.
You were an independent contractor, and your role was to share Maui with the audience on Discover Live.
Yeah, specifically Lahaina Town, Front Street in Lahaina, the banyan tree.
You're out. Welcome to Maui, you guys. Aloha. My name's Kelsey. I love Discover Live. I think it's a great opportunity to bring people from all over the world here to Hawaii for just a tiny little virtual vacation. I am standing right in front of the ocean over here. There's kind of something a little exciting going on. Right over my shoulder is a boat that is capsized. I'll tell you guys about it. Chickens are wild in Hawaii. There are no natural predators here. So you'll just see chickens, baby chickens. Over here are generally pretty happy because, well, they're on vacation. And it's kind of hard to be unhappy here in Hawaii. And then right here in front of me are some really cool old historic cannons that were salvaged from some warships that were actually used as cannons. So you can see here this vine hanging down. And then over here is a pretty good example of what happens. So that dangly vine goes into the ground and all of those roots get bigger and fatter and eventually grow and morph together into a tree. Deal with. Right across the street here from the banyan tree is the Wharf Cinema Center. There is a couple of restaurants. Cool Cats Cafe up there was where my husband and I went on Valentine's Day. Right here in front of me, when I pan you down, is the state flower, the hibiscus. Beautiful. Love the hibiscus. Comes in all different colors. Pink, orange, white, yellow. Love it. I'm pretty sure your fun fact of the day to go and tell all your friends that you learned in the Hawaii tour. Thanks.
We have a question for you, Kelsey.
Yes. Aloha.
Aloha, everyone. Have a wonderful day.
And that was one of the most popular destinations. This is how all this came up when I was talking to Jay. And, you know, Maui went through COVID, as did everyone else. We talked to the woman who was in charge of the Maui Office on Aging. And so many older adults in Hawaii had to retool learning digital skills because during COVID, tourism was challenged. So this has hit people's lives and their businesses, hasn't it?
Yeah, I've heard a lot of people say that they feel that this is worse than COVID was. I think simply because there's an immediate death toll right away and thousands of homes were lost. It's a different feeling than COVID was. COVID was a lot of like unexplained questions, but this is like very clear how tragic it was. And, you know, I've spent my fair amount of time on Front Street in Lahaina. I loved doing tours with Discover Live. And I don't know, it seems really surreal. There's really not a whole lot of ways to describe it. I mean, I was like over there while it was on fire. I'll tell you guys the story. And we didn't really realize how bad it was when we were looking at it till we got home and we realized that, you know, our friends were stuck on the side of the island and realized how much devastation, and they still don't really have a number on like how much was destroyed. Yeah.
But you were there when the fire.
My husband works at the zipline company that's over on the other side of where the fire is. And they have some coworkers, they come on like a 3-month contract to just come and work for the busy season. And they're towards the end of their contract. And I did tours all over the island. So I was like, let's go take some of your coworkers out on a little hike. And so I went that morning in a van that they rented and picked up 4 of them and drove across the island here and went to the jungle and the bamboo forest and had a great day, and then came back here and dropped my husband and baby off. Thank God they weren't with me, and drove them back across the island. And I was probably like 100 cars away from getting through the road before they closed the road down. And we were up on the bypass, which is like the top of the town. And we were watching like the bus let people off just right there because the cops were turning everybody around. And so, you know, and if I had made it through, or even like had this thought to like take the beach road, you know, because I want to take them on the scenic route. But that was kind of weird because the fire was still going. It had been going that morning, but it was nothing compared to what it was at about 4:30. And that was right about when we were getting turned around, and it went from what seemed like a big fire to just this massive cloud of black, thick smoke. So we turned around and went down the bypass, and there were all kinds of power lines down. And we actually drove over a couple of downed power lines that were like whipping around in the wind, and went up and whacked the car. And the gentleman that were in the car with me kind of like gave me the go, go, go. And we drove over them real fast and like all started laughing manically because we had just like, I mean, clearly that's super dangerous, and we had just survived it, and the power line didn't get caught up in our tire or anything. But there were all these people driving over all these power lines, just like out of a scene of a movie, and just trying to get away as fast as we could because this giant cloud of black smoke was just like right behind us. And that area that we drove over down power lines is completely toast now. That the whole neighborhood is fully leveled. So at some point, all of that was on fire. And I'm super grateful that we didn't get stuck in the fire or stuck on the other side of where the fire was, because the road closed for almost a solid 2 days. And everybody was some people were stuck in their rental cars for like 36 hours with no food or water, like just waiting for them to open the road. And then because all the power lines were down, there was no cell reception. There was no means for them to warn people or anything like that, because all of the lines were down. So I'm really grateful that I didn't get stuck on the other side of the fire, because my husband would have had a heyday about that. He would have been pretty upset. He would have been pretty bummed that people were stuck and nobody knew if everybody was okay. There were people that were missing for days and days, and they were finally like reunited with their family because they took the shuttle bus that was, evacuating people from the west side. So it was really scary, and I didn't realize how close I was to getting caught and all that until I had gotten home, and it was a couple days later. And then at the same time, this side of the island was also on fire. And so I was, really just focused on getting my family ready to evacuate, packing the car and then unpacking the car because the fire was out, and then repacking the car because the fire came back. And 600 acres burned up on the mountain, and a bunch of land right behind us, like right above our house, was on fire. My grandparents had to evacuate to my mom's house. We were all like, we stayed up all night long, my husband and I, just kind of like taking shifts, checking on the fire, making sure it wasn't like time to go.
It is a very devastating. Kelsey, when Sue talked to you about this podcast yesterday, she shared with some of the things that you're going through, and then also you're moving away from Lehigh as the Lehigh as well. And maybe you can tell everybody here some of the good things that you're also doing to help others that is desperate.
Yeah. I don't know. I don't want to toot my horn. I feel like, honestly, I could be doing a lot more. I want to go down to the shelters and help and just donate everything that I can. But at the same time, my husband lost his job. And so we've got 2 foster kids and a baby, and we're trying to figure out our plan of action of what we're going to do for our family. And so I have been, there's a community over on the east side, or over in Wailuku, which is like the town side of the island, who are taking in a lot of refugees. And I've started to help used to do some cleaning for condos. So I'm kind of helping them maintain that area to help bring more people in. But my husband has gotten an opportunity on the Big Island where we've lived before. That's where my son was born. And my landlord's brother-in-law lost everything. So we figure if we have a new opportunity somewhere else, that we can give up our house to somebody who lost their house, and just, conveniently also for us, be able to leave everything, all our dishes and furniture, because they have nothing that they're going to be moving in. So that was kind of one of the determining factors of, okay, we want to move to the Big Island. That's been on our list. It was going to be a couple of years from now, but since the housing now here is like so, it was bad before. And so now there's just so many people who are displaced. And, a lot of people are talking about how they're getting kicked out of their rentals because the family is like, we need to put our family in this unit. So there's a lot of aftermath that I think is hard for people to feel devastated about, because initially they're alive and well, and so many people are not, and So that, I mean, it's hard, but you can't help but be grateful to be here, especially like being over there and seeing it. But hopefully, I've reached out to the community on the Big Island, and they are just as warm and inviting as we are over here, saying, we're happy to help you guys with whatever you need in your, your relocation for helping people on Maui. That there's efforts all across the whole world of people who are helping and reaching out, which is really beautiful, because the government is being they're stalling a little bit, and there's really no time for that. So the community is really coming together and making sure that people have what they need: food, water, gas, and just, everything that they can think of. And there's supposed to be another storm coming. It looks nice outside right now, but the other storm that, we always talk about how the storms that really affect Hawaii are the ones that no one really sees coming, that there's really no warning for. A lot of times we'll get weeks in advance notice for hurricanes, but this last storm, the Hurricane Dora, like no one really knew it was coming. It was just out of nowhere, catastrophic hurricane force winds. And it was the craziest winds I've ever seen. And I used to work up on a zip line course and see windy days all the time. This was like moving the car wind. It was bizarre. It was like tornado wind. It was really crazy.
We wish you all the best for your family. I know there'll be always a place for you in Discover Live, right? As you go from island to island. And we hope that your story here will compel others to get involved and make a contribution to support the people that you just described. And so we're sending a bucket full of love here from our California and through all our senior living communities that are connected.
And
Yeah.
Jay, I know you're marshaling the Discover Live community to try to help as best you can. Tell us about that.
Yeah, there are several things that we're working on in the back end to help. But one of the things that we just literally over the past weekend were able to accomplish is that we developed a website that allows for every person who makes donation to accredited fire relief organizations assisting response and recovering efforts in Lahaina. We want to thank them, and we'll give them access to an exclusive 40-minute pre-recorded virtual walking tour of Lahaina before the fire. So this tour was actually conducted by Kelsey, and this rare glimpse into the recent past will showcase the charming sites, cafes, restaurants, art galleries, landmark banyan tree that made this space so beloved and special. So we hope this virtual tour inspires generous support to help Lahaina rebuild and recover. And Kelsey, I really appreciate you offering your firsthand perspective on the situation. And we'll talk soon.
Thank you. Our hearts certainly go out to you. Mike, you had something you wanted to add?
Well, I was just simply going to say, Jay, please make sure that's available to us so we can push that out and communicate that to our members as well. We'd be very happy to do that. Thank you.
I will.
Thank
you, Mike.
Our hearts and prayers go out to you.
Thank you.
There's a lot of power when we share these stories together. I remember when I was at SeniorNet and there was the earthquake in Japan, the seniors in Santa Cruz reached out, and that kind of connection of when you feel the pain, then you really want to be helpful. So there's a lot of magic in our connected world and in the hearts of the people that want to see you through this. So
we've gotten loads and loads of people to reach out to, just check that we're okay, which people I haven't heard from in 10 years that I went to high school with. So it's always kind of a bummer that in times of tragedy, everyone comes together. Like we always wish that we would have done it sooner. But it's also beautiful. So
we want to encourage everyone to do whatever they can. There are many sites, many organizations trying to help that are legitimate, Red Cross for one, but there are many, many others, many of them based there in Maui. So do whatever you can. We appreciate Kelsey, Mike, and Jay, all of you for joining us. We also want to thank Scott Moody once again from K4Connect And we thank our sponsor for this episode, Magnolia, Thrive at Home with Expert Support. Find more at joinmagnolia.com. We appreciate all of you for watching or listening. Don't forget to subscribe and spread the word. You can find more at maryfurlong.com/podcasts.